It's award season, and guess what? There's 50 official voters, and then there's me, the unofficial 51st vote, the people's vote out there. And really, these awards are pretty much about one thing. It's for content purposes. They're doing this for the podcasters like us. They're doing it for the live chat. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section. Who do you guys think should win these awards? I just looked at my votes versus the actual current betting markets right now, and I actually disagree with a lot of these. So I'll make my case, and then hopefully we can kind of take some of these down there. So I wrote up all this over on underdognetwork.com, and let's start this thing out with the 2025 NFL MVP. I think it should be Drake May. It was a two-player race, but Drake May ended up being first in EPA per play. He was also first in completion percentage over expected. If you kind of look at the chart, it really wasn't all that close. So he had like the best efficiency of all the quarterbacks. And then you just look at the environment around him. His offensive line going into the season, consensus was a bottom 5 unit. He also lost his left tackle, Will Campbell, for the last month of the season. His wide receivers were all in a rotation. They were dealing with injuries. Steph Diggs coming off a torn ACL. So once you kind of factor in the environment around him, I think that Drake May was an excellent MVP caliber quarterback this year. One of my favorite stats looking into this was when he was pressured, reminder, the bad offensive line, he was third best in EPA per play. So yes, he had a little bit of a softer schedule, but I think that his own team was not that great. And the fact that he kind of performed better under pressure versus Matthew Stafford, who we'll get to in a second, I think that was a good way to break the tie. He also had more wins than Matthew Stafford. So I think Drake May, while it wasn't the craziest MVP season ever, I do think he was the better quarterback, did more for his own team, which I do think is most valuable. Matthew Stafford definitely was an MVP candidate himself. He's the current favorite right now, actually a pretty heavy favorite. And that's because he led the NFL in touchdown passes, led the NFL in passing yards. The 46 passing touchdowns is actually the most since 2020 when Aaron Rodgers did that. And that's pretty impressive just because the way defenses have kind of changed over like the last 5 years are trying to take away the explosive play, a lot more runs right now. So the fact that he's able to rack up that many touchdown passes, super impressive. Efficiency was awesome too. He was fifth in EPA per play. I think what he did, which was so interesting, was just like manipulating these zone defenders with his eyes, like a lot of no-look passes, all that fun stuff, throwing the ball over the top to the perimeter. All was excellent from Matthew Stafford. Unlike Drake May, he had a lot of guys around him. Obviously, Puka Nacua, we'll get to him as an award winner in a second. Sean McVay is always a coach of the year candidate in my eyes. The offensive line was really good. And then also the ground game was the most efficient in terms of success rate, not just this year, but over like decades and decades and decades. So Matthew Stafford, awesome individual season, stayed healthy. The Rams, you can make an argument, are the best team in the NFL. They just happen to have the 5 seed out there. I think there's a pretty clear drop off from third, like second to third. I go with Josh Allen. I thought his receiver room was amongst the worst in the NFL. He was still fourth in EPA per play. The defense also wasn't very good. So the fact that they won 12 games is a Josh Allen stat. Part of the James Cook emergence over the last couple of years is because of Josh Allen. So he had to play like a superhero for some of these games to go the Bills' direction. He absolutely did that for most of the season. He just does not have an efficiency tiebreaker against Drake May. He doesn't have a head-to-head case against Drake May. And then he also doesn't have a volume case against Matthew Stafford. So I think a distant third, but once again, in the mix. Myles Garrett, I'm just going to go like an unconventional MVP case. It's really hard to win the MVP right now if you're not a quarterback. I think that's a fair way to frame this. But he just had one of the most impressive defensive seasons we've ever seen, like truly NFL history. Obviously, the sack record, people are going to say, oh, he had the extra game. But if you look at sacks per team pass attempt faced, Myles Garrett was the best of all time. He doesn't have like another edge rusher that's like collapsing pockets. Everyone knew it was Myles Garrett. You saw them the last couple games of the season, how much teams were like completely fearful of Myles Garrett. Still gets the job done. He's fourth. Fifth, I was looking for another quarterback. Like I can hear Justin Herbert. I can hear a couple other quarterbacks out there. I went with Jordan Love. He was actually second in EPA per play. His offense dealt with a lot of injuries. The offensive line, Elton Jenkins, Zach Tom at pass catcher, Tucker Kraft. Early in the season, he didn't have Christian Watson. He also didn't have Jaden Reed. The offensive line typically is pretty good for the Green Bay Packers. It was 29th in pressure rate allowed. When he was under pressure, Jordan Love bombs away down the field. So yeah, he didn't have the volume of stats because it's a really balanced offense. He missed a couple games at the end there. But through the first 15 weeks, the Green Bay Packers passing offense had the most EPA added. That's when they clinched the playoffs. That's when he got injured. So I think for the first 15 weeks of the season, Jordan Love was playing like an MVP candidate. My 2025 Offensive Player of the Year, it's Puka Nacua. This one I think is actually pretty simple, and it goes against what the betting markets are, which has JSN as a heavy favorite. Puka Nacua led all non-quarterbacks in EPA added. He was also number one in success rate on targets. It wasn't even close. In either one of those categories, the efficiency and the success rate on another planet from everybody else. Once Devontae Adams got out of there, he had 225 yards, 57 yards and a score, 76 yards and a score. He averaged over 115 total yards per game. We're talking like an all-time wide receiver receiving season. And then on top of that, super physical, working over the middle, like willing to take on these huge hits, willing to block in the ground game. He is a huge part of why the Rams were first in most offensive metrics. I thought Puka Nacua was definitely the best wide receiver in the NFL this year. JSN, he finished his second in a lot of those categories I just mentioned. Second in EPA added. He had 3.4 yards per route run. Truly ridiculous stuff. What was so cool about JSN was kind of a slot wide receiver. Get Clint Kubiak. Now you're doing play action, under center stuff. Sam Darnold wants to throw the ball over the top. JSN transforms his game. I thought was like playing faster. Like there was moments where he was running away from defenders. I'm not sure if I ever saw that coming. All of a sudden, he's one of the best downfield wide receivers in the game. Awesome at the catch point. Fantastic route runner. Truly broke out from a very good wide receiver to one of the best receivers in the game. George Pickens finished his third. To me, this was maybe something I didn't realize was happening until I really got into the weeds here. George Pickens was third in EPA added among all the non-quarterbacks at 89, which is almost identical to what JSN was doing. George Pickens had some monster moments down the sideline, but he also had like a lot of moments working after the catch because the Cowboys were allowing him to run more dig routes, more slant routes. Dak Prescott also more willing to throw those types of routes, but he was still doing the same George Pickens things where he just mossing dudes down the field all game as well. So maybe like the most fascinating part of the George Pickens profile this year was his success rate. He became way less volatile than we typically saw with George Pickens on his targets. Wide receivers with 50 or more of them, he was fourth in success rate. So third in EPA, fourth in success rate at the second most valuable position on offense. Really impressive stuff for George Pickens. He will be a Cowboy next year, whether that's the franchise tag or a huge $100 million bag. There's no way he is leaving Dallas. By far the easiest award we're going to go through today is Defensive Player of the Year, Myles Garrett. So we saw all the production. Just wanted to also note he was double or triple teamed on 65% of his pass rushes. That was the third highest in the NFL. You saw that at the end, like they're chipping him. They're bringing legitimately both the guard and tackle his way. It was wild stuff. He was fantastic. His power, his ability to turn the corner at like 285 pounds. It's freaky. Like to me, since like covering the NFL, it's obviously Myles Garrett, it's JJ Watt, and it is that absolute freakazoid in Aaron Donald. All three of them totally unique, totally dominant. Myles Garrett at the very top of his game right now. Second place was a debate. It was between Micah Parsons and Will Anderson for me. Micah Parsons only plays about 12 and a half games once you kind of factor in that the first couple games of the season, he was not a full-time player. He averages about a sack per game, which puts him at a very, very elite level. He was double teamed or triple teamed on 69% of his pass rushes. That was the most in the NFL. He was still second highest in pass rush win rate. I thought that he was able to even hold up against runs as well. I know that was like the common thread there. So I think like the peak of his powers were so elite that I will slightly give him the edge over Will Anderson, who had 12 sacks. And I just don't think that the counting stats like really does this one justice. He was chipped at the third highest rate. He was fourth in ESPN's pass rush win rate. Teams were fearful of holding onto the ball because of Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson. And I think just on top of everything, the Texans finished as the best defense in terms of points allowed. He is the center of that. So I thought that was a pretty clear top three, with Myles Garrett running away with it. Offensive Rookie of the Year. This was a pretty tight race as well. I think this one came down to the very last week of the season. Tetairoa McMillan wins it for me. He passes over that 1,000-yard threshold. It is a playoff team, even though they lost. It's a crazy season to get there, but very clearly the best skill guy on a playoff caliber team. He was 20th in receiving yards per game, wide receiver 28 in terms of EPA added. I think that those numbers could both have gone up if he had better quarterback play, better offensive line play around him. But I thought he was able to like run away from defenders on these crossing routes. There was definitely some yards after the catch moments. I think that was the thing that was like most nitpicked about his game. Is he fast enough? The answer to that is yes. He was obviously able to dunk on guys. You can use him in the screen game. You can move him across the formation, a little bit of slot work, but a lot of his production was the difficult stuff at X wide receiver. He will absolutely be a top 50 pick in fantasy. He already was on Underdog last year, but you're going to have to pay up for Tetairoa McMillan. Really reminds me of like a Drake London type of player here. So super smash for the Carolina Panthers. I almost went with Jackson Dart, and I think you guys probably would have canceled me for Offensive the Rookie of the Year. I made him second. I think there's two different sections of this conversation. It's the Giants' inept depth on defense. It's the really bad wide receivers and tight ends that they have. That made them one of the worst football teams out there. Then there's the Jackson Dart as an individual part of this, which I'm putting a lot more weight on. Jackson Dart, despite having, no Malik Neighbors, he was out there for 13 dropbacks with Malik Neighbors and Jackson Dart. The rest of it, he's throwing it to my boy Darius Slayton, who couldn't catch anything. Theo Johnson, he couldn't catch anything. Wan'Dale Robinson played better, but he's not a number one wide receiver out there. And he still was 12th in EPA per play. Like, that is amazing. I think the offensive line was just about average. I think that the play calling was like just about average, if not underwhelming. A lot of that was just Jackson Dart being a straight up dog. He was number one in total rushing EPA among all quarterbacks, barely beating out this guy named Josh Allen, if you ever heard of him. He was just ahead of Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence, Baker Mayfield, Jalen Hurts in EPA per play. So I thought he played very well. He obviously had some brain fart moments. The Brian Flores game was horrific. He has to get better inside the pocket. He's got to protect himself a little bit better, but his arm was live. I thought for the most part was making pretty decent decisions, was able to work through his progressions enough for a rookie quarterback. And then he's like a legit good athlete. So I think a very promising season for Jackson Dart. They had the 5th and 37th overall picks to not F this one up. Get him another offensive lineman, get him some help on defense there, maybe get another pass catcher, another tight end in the mix, and everything will be okay for the Giants. Tyler Shuck was a very, very close third pick for me. His efficiency was not quite as good as Jackson Dart. His total numbers were cut in half because he only started half the season there. But I think immediately, right when he started, his arm stood out to me. There was layered throws, either to the sideline, over the top. But I think the most important thing for Tyler Shuck is I thought he was making more full field reads, getting back to that backside dig route, throwing the ball over the middle, all from within the pocket. He looked like he had seen everything that the defenses were throwing out to him, probably because he has, he's 26 years old, has been hanging around big time college programs forever. But you felt that translate, and you did not feel him scared. Like, that was the big narrative from him as a prospect. Is he willing to take a hit? Is he kind of a coward? He kind of just throws the ball out. How many of those plays did you see? Really not that many. In fact, I thought that there were some times where he was getting drilled as he was throwing the ball. I think he really reminds me of Ryan Tannehill, who had some moments of obviously throwing the ball, play action over the middle, but also being kind of underrated in how mobile he was. And Tyler Shuck caught a couple defenses by surprise in the scramble department, and then the quarterback design game, both in the red zone and also even like running off like 35-yard touchdowns. So he'd be a first round pick. Absolutely. If the draft happened today, really promising season for the New Orleans Saints. Also wanted to mention like Armand Membu had a fantastic season at right tackle. It's really hard for an offensive lineman to get rewarded in these awards, but I thought Armand Membu was fantastic as well. Gray Zabel was very good. There's a bunch of offensive linemen that you can make the case for. And then both the tight ends, I thought Tyler Warren started off awesome. Colson Loveland finished off strong. So pretty decent class in terms of depth, even if none of these guys were like slam dunk O'Roy candidates. Defensive Rookie of the Year. I thought this one was actually pretty close as well. Carson Schlesinger is the favorite. He's also my pick here. He made 156 tackles. Like that's ridiculous. That's the 5th most in the NFL. If you're removing the week 18, which he did not play for. He was also 3rd in tackles for loss. He was able to come downhill. When I watched Carson Schlesinger as a prospect, I really, really liked him, even though he went to the worst LA school. His instincts, coverage ability was fantastic. Like he's very fast. He can get his eyes on the quarterbacks. He understands the route combinations that are coming his way. I knew he was going to be very good in coverage in the pros. I think the question with him was how physical is he going to be in the ground game? Is he too small? And that was just not the case. He was very strong against the run, shed tacklers, get his nose in there. That's why he made all of those tackles. And then on top of that, as a rookie, he wears the green dot. He's calling the plays in the huddle. He's the communicator out there in the middle of the defense with Jim Schwartz, who obviously has been in the league forever calling defenses. So not easy to tell Myles Garrett exactly what the play call is, Denzel Ward and all that stuff. He was out there, showed leadership on top of that. Schlesinger is going to be a very good linebacker for the Browns for many, many years. Abdul Carter and James Pierce, 2 awesome speed rushing talents at edge rusher. I go with Abdul Carter over James Pierce. And this one, you cannot make the case based off of the actual sack production. Abdul Carter only had 4 sacks. If you sit there and watch all of his pressures and you watch all of his quarterback hits, it will blow your mind how he did not have more sacks. He started off the year in a rotation. Remember, he got like suspended for a couple times. You watch his last 5-6 games of the season, you see a superstar in the making. He still played over 900 snaps. He was not being taken out of ball games because of his size. They would actually move him across the formation. Abdul Carter's spin move, he did it on the left tackle. He did it on centers. He did it on right tackles. That dude is spinning like I've never seen anybody spin aside from me on the dance floor. He also won with power as like a run defender. He was only behind Donovan Ezeraku in this draft class on tackles against the run with a negative EPA, like tackles that like really mattered, like not just like shoestring tackles on the edge, like no, like holding the point of attack and making guys not be able to run right through him. I thought that was really nasty. I see the Micah Parsons comparison. You really have to squint, but 4th in ESPN's pass rush win rate, that shocked me when I looked at it. But the more you watch Abdul Carter, like the more you really appreciate where his game's going to go. So if this award was about who's going to be the best in the future, slam dunk, it's Abdul Carter. Did go with Carson Schlesinger just because the suspensions didn't love from Abdul Carter. Did not have like the counting stats like to really prove my point here. But trust me, like watch the freaking tape with Abdul Carter. You will see a future superstar, no doubt about it. James Pierce, famously late round 1 draft pick, that turns into obviously the 13th overall pick because the Falcons wanted to trade their future. They got so lucky that James Pierce is actually good because he was a boom bust prospect. I thought that his tape was top 15 material. And then there was some just character concerns that kind of pushed him down in the draft, pushed him down in a lot of people's big boards, including myself. But he could absolutely glide on film. His outside speed rushes are fantastic. He's got like good like inside stunts. Like you can like kind of make him kind of loop inside. Fantastic at that. His hustle and chase when quarterbacks are trying to escape out of the pocket, he can clean up those type of plays because he's so dang fast. The difference between James Pierce and Abdul Carter is the Falcons did not trust James Pierce to stop the run. And I kind of see that too. So he only had 6 of these tackles against runs with a negative EPA. That was at 17 for Abdul Carter. So I think those two guys, James Pierce is like raw counting stats in terms of rushing the passer better than Abdul Carter's. I think that Abdul Carter's tape was better. I thought that had an impact on all three downs where the Falcons would kind of remove James Pierce from like a lot of the 1st and 10s out there. So all that stuff, we're not going to nitpick it. James Pierce, certified baller. Jalen Walker, also good for the Atlanta Falcons. So they're very lucky that James Pierce looks like a true difference maker. 10.5 sacks for him. Wanted to throw out a couple other rookies here just because we spent all this time on the NFL draft. Wanted to shout out some of the rookies that made big impacts. Jahad Campbell, the Eagles' first-round linebacker, didn't play quite as many snaps as Schlesinger. I think Jahad Campbell, his coverage was actually even better than Schlesinger's. There was a play where he was like Tampa 2 running the freaking seam, and I could not believe he was able to get a hand on this one. There was lots of moments, him crashing downfield as well. He's just an awesome player. He fell in the draft for knee issues. I didn't see that at all. So hopefully he can have a long career because he does look like one of the better linebackers out there. I thought he was easily the 4th best option in this list. I thought Jacob Parrish, the Bucks corner, had a good season. Noel Williams, the Chiefs corner, he was very good. The Cowboys, Donovan Ezeraku, an edge rusher, very good. Panthers got Nick Scorton. He played well. Josiah Stewart for the Rams. He had moments. Derek Harmon for the Steelers. We'll watch him in the NFL playoffs. He's as big as a house. Could definitely move upfield as well. He's going to be a big player for the Steelers. Kenneth Grant was more up and down, but there's some real high-end moments for Kenneth Grant, the defense tackle for the Dolphins. And then Mason Graham, a good pass rusher interior-wise next to Myles Garrett. So I thought a pretty good defensive class. Like that was 10, 12 names there. All those guys stood out for rookies. Some of those guys on day 2 of the draft, but Abdul Carter, James Pierce, and then Carson Schlesinger were the top 3 for that award.
I know it's that time of year. You just want to stay inside, do nothing on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. But guess what? There's someone in your life that needs to get out, spread their wings, feel like they've accomplished something. And so if you don't have any ideas, what I'd love to do is pull up the SeatGeek app and see what's going on in my area. Like for me, Nate Bargatze is performing in a couple of days. Or I can go see Gunna. 2 different types of people at those events, most likely. Also, someone named Dijon is playing tonight. Look, that's what SeatGeek is great for. Finding new talent out there that maybe becomes your favorite artist. Or if you're struggling for some type of holiday gift, like SeatGeek already has events up for, next year. I can look up something that's coming in April or July, or Alex Warren on June 26th. That's what SeatGeek is good for, getting you or your significant other up out of their seat and making life a bit more enjoyable. Of course, I have a promo code for all of you guys. You can use code FANTASY10 for 10% off your next set of tickets at SeatGeek. That's 10% off any tickets, whether you use it for the first time or not, the app before or not, with promo code FANTASY10. Make sure you click the link in the description to download the app and have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it later. Thank you, SeatGeek.
This is the new one, Protector of the Year 2025. And I want to start off with this. Please go listen to former NFL linemen, especially interior offensive linemen, the way that they talk about the other positions out there. If you listen to a center talk about him trying to go play guard and the athleticism going from center to guard and how big of a leap that is, that's hilarious. Then you go listen to a former guard go try to play tackle and listen to like what they think of offensive tackles. You realize how important the outside 2 tackles are versus the interior. Now, interior offensive linemen, very valuable, but the athleticism and like how rare you have to be to survive as a tackle makes me think Protector of the Year is largely an offensive tackle award. So I thought the best offensive tackle this year was Garrett Bowles. He is the left tackle for the Broncos, the number 1 seed Broncos, one of the better run blocking teams out there. He's also the blindside protector, so Protector of the Year. Garrett Bowles was out there. He led all left tackles in the amount of snaps out there. A lot of the other left tackles, Trent Williams, Larry Tunsil, Andrew Thomas, Tristan Wirfs, all those guys missed some time. Garrett Bowles was out there. He wasn't credited with a single sack allowed, which is super impressive. I thought he's really developed over the years. His athleticism has like always been like off the charts, like one of like the fastest, one of the best three cones among tackle prospects. You feel that in the screen game. You feel that in some of the zone concepts. You can pull Garrett Bowles out there. Some of these big bootlegs that you'll see with Bo Nix. Garrett Bowles is just on the other side of that, just like holding the line by himself. Super important player, the leader of the Broncos. I think it'd be kind of weird to have, the number 1 seed not be recognized somewhere on this list. Garrett Bowles is a good protector of the year. Second would be Trent Williams. This was not like the Hall of Fame caliber Trent Williams. I thought Myles Garrett got him like 4 or 5 times. There was some of like the best pass rushers had some moments against Trent Williams. But other than that, like he was still lights out. He's the enforcer of the 49ers. Like you're not going to go bully the 49ers because Trent Williams is going to go kick your ass. You feel that in the ground game, especially. So ESPN had him at 7th best in their run block win rate. He was also top 20 in pass rush win rate. He was the only offensive tackle to be top 10 and top 20 in those 2 categories. He only missed a little bit of time here. He's probably the guy that this award should be like largely named after. So he finished his 2nd here. 3rd was really close. Penei Sewell and Darnell Wright were both of the right tackles. We have the Lions and the Chicago Bears. Very similar players in that they are both highly athletic and also extremely physical as run blockers. Both those offenses are very balanced. Darnell Wright had like a huge breakout season with Ben Johnson. Penei Sewell, same old. You can pull them. You can run those guys with power. I thought both of them struggled with Micah Parsons, which is why he was, 2nd in defensive player of the year. So I do think it was kind of a step down, also being on right tackle, but those guys were completely nasty, especially in the ground game. I go with Penei Sewell for 3rd. Wanted to throw out a couple of names though. Laramie Tunsil didn't play an entire season, but Laramie Tunsil was awesome at left tackle for the Commanders. Aaron Brewer, the Dolphins center. I'm not going to vote a center for protector of the year for the reasons I just outlined, but Aaron Brewer was nasty for the Dolphins. They would pull him out in space. He is kind of small, but he is up in your face at all times. He was like the unsung hero of a bad Dolphins team. Him and Patrick Paul at left tackle. Those guys pin, pull, get those guys out in space. That was a treat. Obviously, Andrew Thomas had a good year. Tristan Wirfs, Alaric Jackson, the Rams left tackle. He was great. A bunch of new interior offensive linemen, kind of the same names there. Quentin Nelson, Joe Tooney, Peter Skoronski. So top 3, Garrett Bowles is the winner. Trent Williams, Penei Sewell for the top 3. Pretty cool award. I'm glad that we have it on the docket. Comeback Player of the Year. This award, I think, largely stinks. Like we need to separate this award because there's kind of like 2 different thought processes here. There's one, it's like the guy that came back from injury, like comeback player of the year from an injury. That's one thing. Then there's like kind of like a breakout candidate. So like that was like Geno Smith stunk. Now he was good. He's now the comeback player of the year. I don't know which way to kind of lean there. Like I can hear cases from both sides. I think like we should split these 2 awards. Like I want like comeback player of the year from injury. And then I want like breakout candidate. I think that would be a lot of fun. So let's separate these ones. This one also has like, I think the least seriousness to it, but I am going ahead in taking Aiden Hutchinson as the comeback player of the year. Nobody is making this case, but this one to me, I felt maybe the most strongly about aside from Myles Garrett. He broke his leg in half last year. I watched it. He broke his tib and his fib in half. That is not fun. Compare that to Christian McCaffrey, who, yes, like Achilles tendonitis, also no fun. But right now, if you said, Hayden, you can either break your leg or you can have Achilles tendonitis, I am taking the Achilles tendonitis 9 out of 10 times. Aiden Hutchinson broke his leg, very serious injury, especially given he's a pass rusher. So what does he do this year? He leads the NFL with the most total pressures, the 4th highest pressure rate according to PFF. He had 14.5 sacks. He had the 3rd most quarterback hits. He was also chipped at the 4th highest rate. And on top of that, I think this is the coolest part about the Aiden Hutchinson story. He was the only edge rusher to reach 1,000 snaps. So not only does he come back from injury, he was super productive. Teams knew he was the guy that they had to block. They couldn't do it. And he was able to stay on the field at a ridiculous clip. So I think Aiden Hutchinson, everything about this screams to me that he should be the comeback player of the year. Now, Christian McCaffrey also has a fantastic case for this. Career high, 413 touches. He was ironically the only 49er to stay healthy the entire year. I thought that he had a dance around pretty bad run blocking, aside from Trent Williams. He also was weaponized as a receiver, like not like catching a little swing passes and screens. Like, no, like you're running like fades from the slot. Like you don't see that from running backs all the time. He had to do that because everybody else was injured. He was totally fantastic. Don't want to take anything away from Christian McCaffrey. He did a lot of the same stuff as Aiden Hutchinson did. I just think breaking ties like Achilles tendonitis versus breaking your leg in half, I think is more impressive that Aiden Hutchinson did that on top of, the positional value stuff. But Christian McCaffrey, awesome season. He was our fantasy football MVP, won us a lot of money. Hopefully you guys did draft him. So that was the award I gave him. Third on this list, let's recognize how wonky this award was and how wonky the season was. And let's put Phillip Rivers on there. Honorable mention. He gets my number 3 vote here. A literal 44-year-old grandpa playing football who had not played in almost 5 seasons just goes in there. And given like the stakes for the Colts, like they were still in the playoff mix, this is like a very serious effort. I thought that Phillip Rivers, while obviously not good, held the line. Like there was some times where I thought that the Colts could like win a couple games there and like actually get them to the dance. So like if he had won a game, if he had played that 4th game, if they had somehow, made the playoffs, he would be the runaway favorite for comeback player of the year. Gave him 3rd out there. Also wanted to mention Dak Prescott came off of a huge hamstring injury, nearly led in some passing categories. He was awesome. Troy Fautanu, the 1st rounder for the Steelers, I think played only 1 game as a rookie, comes back at right tackle and was awesome for the Steelers, a team that snuck into the playoffs. He is like a legit awesome player at right tackle. He has a big case. Chris Olave nearly retired because of concussions. He was top 5 in a lot of categories. He didn't miss much time at all, did not have another concussion. So like really awesome season for him. Stephon Diggs, I could not believe how efficient he was on a per target basis coming off of a torn ACL. He kind of like stood out on that offensive player of the year chart that I mentioned earlier on the show. He was great. Christian Watson literally tore his ACL in January and then came back, was playing football, like really good football in October. I thought that was fantastic. And then Andrew Thomas, very serious injury at left tackle. He played really well coming off of that one. So pretty cool award. Aiden Hutchinson, though, like not enough has been made about what he did. My 2025 coach of the year is Mike McDonald. And this is another one where Mike Vrabel, awesome candidate. He's the favorite as well. I just think that what Mike McDonald did was exactly what this award is all about. The Seahawks, their team total in the preseason was at 8.5. They finished with 14 wins. So like beating expectation, like almost doubled it. This was in the most impressive division with, Shanahan and McVay in it. And they went out there and just beat those teams when they absolutely needed it. On top of that, Mike McDonald was the play caller on defense. His defense was the best in the NFL. So like he's doing his side of the ball at an elite level. He's doing it with obviously a lot of talent, but he's pulling from a bunch of different schemes. Like the Seahawks don't major in one thing. They minor in 10 different things. That takes a lot of communication, a lot of great coaching to pull that off. I thought the culture that the Seahawks established felt really alive. This is a very, very good team, the number 1 seed out there. And I think on top of that, the thing that goes overlooked, there's actually 2 things. Number 1 with Mike McDonald, their special teams in Seattle was one of the best of all time. Like I think special teams is a good proxy of just how like good is the communication. Is there a plan in place? Are you hiring the right people around you? Like, do you have a long-term vision for the football team? I think that the Seahawks have all that. And I think even more impressive than that was the offensive turnaround. Remember, in his first season, he had to fire his offensive coordinator. He got rid of Geno Smith. He also then got rid of DK Metcalf. He had to evaluate Clint Kubiak at OC, who's now going to be a head coach most likely. He also had to make sure that JSN was going to be able to take that leap, that he did not need DK Metcalf or Tyler Lockett. Checked that box as well. And then get rid of Geno Smith, get some draft picks, sign Sam Darnold, who Sam Darnold was a good match with Clint Kubiak. So I thought those 3 decisions, not easy at the moment. Mike McDonald deserves some credit on that side of the ball, and his defense was fantastic. So Mike McDonald, very good coach of the year candidate to me. If Kyle Shanahan would have beat Mike McDonald and the Seahawks in week 18, I would have picked Shanahan. Getting the number 1 seed in the NFC was super impressive. What Shanahan did on his side of the ball was they were 3rd in offensive success rate. He had 8 games with Mac Jones, went 5-3 in those. And then with Brock Purdy, he went 7-2. He didn't have Trent Williams the entire year. Brandon Ayuk decided to, just forfeit $25 million guaranteed. I don't know what that was all about. George Kittle goes on IR. Ricky Pearsall goes on IR. His entire defense literally on IR, like all the guys on injured reserve. And here comes Shanahan the last week with a chance to win the number 1 seed. I think Shanahan and McVay, I think years ago, Belichick and Andy Reid, these guys should like always win these damn awards. The fact that they never do, I think is a problem with the award. But this year, Mac Jones plus an injured version of Brock Purdy, elite coaching by Kyle Shanahan. My number 3 candidate and a really, really awesome one was Ben Johnson. 2 years ago, the Bears were 26th in EPA per play. This year, they finished 8th in EPA per play. I think that alone makes him an awesome candidate. They also finished 2nd in the NFC. But I think that the way they got there was super impressive. The offensive line had no chemistry going into the year. He handpicked a bunch of these guys from different teams, brings them all together. Joe Thuney rebounds. Darnell Wright has the best season he's had. Jonah Jackson holds the line. Drew Dahlman was a good center. They find a couple left tackle options, kind of in a developmental program with Ben Johnson. And they were 1st in ESPN's block win rate on pass plays, in 6th on run plays. So like all this chemistry coming in, and they were just nailing it on both sides of the ball. That was a disaster offensive line. The fact that Ben Johnson was able to do that, he was using multiple tight ends. His wide receivers were in a rotation. His running backs were in a rotation. There was a lot of things going on in Chicago. He held the line. And meanwhile, the other side of the ball was only 20th in EPA per play. So the reason why the Bears had the season they did was entirely because of the offense. Ben Johnson was awesome. Liam Cohen, a lot of the same arguments for Ben Johnson apply to Liam Cohen. Sean McVay, a lot of the same things for Kyle Shanahan, just always should be in the mix. And then Mike Vrabel, pretty similar case to a lot of these guys, just is not the play caller out there. And then, his quarterback wins MVP. So all those guys, a great list for coach of the year. Mike McDonald, though, there's really no more I can say about him. Assistant coach of the year, another kind of wacky award, but I do love it. And the more I looked into what the Patriots did, the more it just makes sense to say, Josh McDaniels, you are the assistant coach of the year. 2 years ago, the Patriots were 27th in EPA per play. This year, they finish 1st. That's in 1 year. They bring in some new offensive linemen, but let's be honest, like 34-year-old Morgan Moses, castaways at center, and then rookies on the left side. It's not like they were like bringing in a bunch of proven studs on the offensive line. He makes that work. Wide receivers, full-blown rotations. Tight ends, full-blown rotations. Running backs, full-blown rotations. Lots of moving parts. By the end of the year, Josh McDaniels' ground game was going a lot more explosive out there, so he found some answers as the course of the season progressed. And then the entire season, his downfield shots, what Drake made, like Kayshon Boutte to like Kyle Williams, like very unproven players, was fantastic. So took 1 year off, really rebounded, had an awesome season. I think that he would be a great head coaching potential candidate if you were able to interview him and figure what the hell has gone wrong in his previous stops. Because when it comes to X's and O's on offense, Josh McDaniels was the man. Brian Flores, also the man. I love watching Brian Flores. Josh and I always talk about him on the show, just because whenever you get a rookie going against Brian Flores, it is completely over. We saw that with Jackson Dart. We've seen that with others out there. The reason being, his defense is so complicated. You don't know who's coming from where. You just know people are coming eventually. He had 175 more blitzes than the second highest blitz rate defense. 175 more. That is just cranking it all the way to the max with Brian Flores. What was so unique about that is for most of the season, despite bringing extra pressure, he still stayed in too high coverages. Like there was very few times where because a blitzer came, there was somebody streaking down the field all by himself. Like he found the right way to heat up quarterbacks while also making sure that the defense is not getting obliterated by explosive plays. He's kind of the only guy doing all of that at once. And without having a bunch of all pros in Minnesota, they were 4th in EPA per play allowed. Like a fantastic season for Brian Flores. Just like with Josh McDaniels, I would love to give him a head coaching interview and just figure out what the hell is going on. Because in terms of the play calling, he's as good as it gets on defense. Jesse Minter, the young version of Brian Flores without the crazy blitzing. He plays a lot of zone coverage, a lot of too high zone coverage. This is the Chargers defensive coordinator, by the way. They were 2nd lowest in man coverage. So his defense is all about instincts, eyes on the quarterback, passing things off, make sure you're communicating. The Chargers had the best PFF coverage grade of the season. Derwin James had a great year, and they did this without like a crazy amount of pass rush. Remember, Khalil Mack had that huge elbow brace on. He missed a portion of the season. They lost Joey Bosa. They lost Puna Ford. So it wasn't that the defensive line was kicking ass. It was the back 7 players. That takes a lot of communication. I think the communication on the secondary is what makes the best defensive coordinators go. And Jesse Minter probably will be a head coach this year or next year because that's back-to-back seasons of doing the same old stuff under Harbaugh. So a great list of awards there. So you get 5 for MVP, and then you get a top 3 for the rest of them. Those were my opinions for it. And up next, we are going to get to the fired coaches. All right, Black Monday. It's 1:00 over in California, and I spy 6 head coach openings. Instead of breaking down why, Pete Carroll was fired, why you name it was fired, let's spin this thing forward. I'm going to rank the openings, just what teams are in the best position to win, who's in the best cities, who's got the best division, who's got the most cap space, who's got the best roster out there, who has the best ownership from above. So number 1 opening for me is the New York Giants. You've got 2, I think, superstar edge rushers. Brian Burns is under contract. Abdul Carter looks like he's going to be an awesome player after being a top 3 pick. Malik Neighbors is a proven wide receiver 1, Andrew Thomas at left tackle, and then Dexter Lawrence at defensive tackle. And then it looks like Jackson Dart has a really promising future after finishing 12th in EPA per play. So those are all of the premium positions: quarterback, left tackle, wide receiver, defensive tackle, defensive end. And I think they have some pieces in the secondary, even if they didn't live up to their name this year. You also have the 5th overall pick. You also have the 37th overall pick. You got to live in New York City. So I think a lot of pros to the New York Giants job. John Mara usually gives his guys a really long leash. That's why Joe Shane is still going to be the general manager. You saw Coughlin there forever. Dayball lasted for a couple more years than maybe he should have. So you get a lot of longevity by getting this job. I think it's very clearly the best job out there. Second best job to me would actually be the Tennessee Titans. This is largely a bet on Cam Ward being good. Was he good as a rookie? He was not. But his arm talent is really, really good. He seems like he really cares out there as well. So I think that in a couple years, Cam Ward can turn into a Jordan Love caliber quarterback. You also have Jeffrey Simmons at defensive tackle. He can be a defensive player of the year candidate. The offensive line largely returns. It's largely pretty good. You have the 3rd overall pick. You have the 35th overall pick. You have $105 million in cap space. You pay no taxes in Tennessee. Nashville seems like a fun place to live. I think that's a pretty decent job. So it really just comes down to that Cam Ward part of the discussion, but you can rebuild this team and you hopefully have some runway to work with because Cam Ward should progress over the next couple seasons. The 3rd best job, it's probably the Raiders, but I don't love this job. You have the 1st overall pick, so if you think that Mendoza is any good, it's a pretty good spot. I haven't watched Mendoza yet, but those that I trust compare him to Matt Ryan. Seems pretty good. You have Max Crosby, whether you're going to keep him or trade him for future 1st-round picks. That's a good problem to have. Brock Bowers is awesome. You pay no taxes in Vegas. You can live in Summerlin or Henderson. There's a lot of things to do out there. The problem is the Raiders have done largely nothing right for my entire life. And then you have Harbaugh with Herbert, Sean Payton in an elite defense in Bo Nix, and then you have Patrick Mahomes in the division. So a really tough division out there. So you better like everything else about the Raiders. Falcons, you got great skill guys. You're in a really bad division. Maybe you keep the defensive coordinator, who I think did a really good job. The negatives with the Falcons job: you have no first round pick this year. Your cap situation still is pretty bad. You're tied to kind of an iffy quarterback in Michael Penix out there. So you probably have to have a season or two with Michael Penix. I don't see the future with him necessarily. So if you guys think that Michael Penix is a better quarterback than I do, maybe you bump them up a spot there. But really, the Falcons job, not all that intriguing to me. Owner is also 83 years old. You're going to have to go work with Matt Ryan, it sounds like. So kind of a weird situation brewing in Atlanta. Arizona Cardinals job, let's just start here. In your division, you got Shanahan, McVay, and then coach of the year, Mike McDonald. Like, how are you going to get yourself out of this? Like, those coaches aren't going anywhere forever. So you better really like the Scottsdale weather and the housing market, which is good. You better like your left tackle, Paris Johnson. He's pretty good. You really better like the pass catchers in Michael Wilson, Trey McBride, and I guess Marvin Harrison Jr. And then they got some young DBs. Like, that's the case for the Arizona Cardinals job. I don't think it's a great job. I don't know how you're beating those guys in the division. You also don't have a quarterback. You're probably going to have to let Kyler Murray go. Just let him walk. I'm not sure if another team's going to take on his contract via trade. So it's a pretty bad situation. It's going to be like Jacoby Myers under contract. Then you have to figure it out 2 years from now. You still have the same GM who's been, I think, largely pretty bad over the course of the last couple seasons as well. So not the greatest situation. Ownership, I hear, is also no bueno. Speaking of bad owners, the Cleveland Browns, they're the 6th opening. I think this is the worst job that there is. I went into this thinking, maybe the cap situation isn't so bad. Wrong. They were $12 million over the cap right now for this next year. They do not have a quarterback. By the way, the Deshaun Watson's cap hit is $80 million. $80 million next year. You can't really get out of that. I looked at it. They have a bunch of void years on their cap right now at left tackle, left guard, center, right guard, and right tackle. For those counting at home, that's the entire offensive line, pending free agents, none under contract. So you have no quarterback. You literally do not have an offensive line, and you're $12 million over the cap. I do not know how you get yourself out of this mess. At least you have Myles Garrett. At least you have Denzel Ward. That entire rookie class looks pretty good. Fannin is a monster. Schlesinger is going to be the defensive rookie of the year. Judkins had a lot of moments. Hopefully he can get healthy. Mason Graham had a lot of moments at a quality position at defensive tackle. Others contributed on top of that. It's just, you're going to be attached to the Cleveland Browns and Andrew Berry. So not the best jobs in general. I would say the Giants job is definitely good. I think the Titans job is kind of interesting. Same thing with the Raiders, depending on how you view those two quarterbacks. And then Falcons, Cardinals, Browns has kind of been the same old story for a lot of those organizations. So not the greatest class out there. Aaron Glenn keeps his job. Dan Quinn keeps his job. Zach Taylor, Mike McDaniel. I would have definitely kept Mike McDaniel. He's awesome. Zach Taylor, I would keep him. Dan Quinn and Aaron Glenn, I'm less convinced that those guys deserved another chance at it. I would say Dan Quinn probably does. He seems like an awesome guy. And that just defense was just so injured. And really their like kind of team building strategy was not my favorite. He only has so much say in that. So I would guess I'd probably keep Dan Quinn again, but his defense is like not very good. And then Aaron Glenn, I guess you can't just keep firing coaches, but man, that defense was just so bad. Like I still cannot get over they did not have an interception. Like that is almost impossible to do. In fact, it is up to this point was impossible to do. That's coming from like a secondaries coach. I don't know what the Jets are going to do. They have a good offensive line, but man, they have no defense right now. And that was his side of the ball. And then I just didn't like the way he handled media for most of the year on top of that. So I think Aaron Glenn, I probably would have got rid of, but the rest of them totally understand. So the top candidates, so we have the newbies, Clint Kubiak and Joe Brady on offense, Jesse Minter, Chris Shula, Anthony Campanelli, Lou Anarumo, and Kelvin Shepard. Those are like the new candidates out there. I'm expecting Kubiak to get a job, Jesse Minter to get a job, and maybe Chris Shula gets a job there. I think he would be interesting. Same thing with Joe Brady. I think those are like the top 4 newbies. And then the old candidates, Kevin Stefanski is definitely getting a job. I think that the Giants and Kevin Stefanski make a lot of sense. Stefanski does like a lot of like, not exactly old Missy things, but also not that far from it. So you kind of have like a little bit of a college wrinkles. And that's how Jackson Dart likes to play. That's how Kevin Stefanski likes to run things. I think those two make a lot of sense. I think Kevin Stefanski is the best head coaching candidate, and the Giants are the best job opening. Put those guys together. I think that one makes a lot of sense. I'm not sure if Josh McDaniels, Cliff Kingsbury, Arthur Smith, if those guys, pass the interview process, those guys have ranging, cool offenses there. I don't know. I would like to interview all 3 of those offensive coordinator types. And then on defense, the old candidates, Brian Flores got the coolest defense in the league, but he's got a bunch of things in his past. Vance Joseph, he had a really bad run as a head coach, but his defense has been very good, though he has like Patrick Surtain and Nick Benito and stuff to work with. Robert Saleh, he's been a head coach before, seems like a decent dude. His defense wasn't that great this year, but that was because of injury. And then Brandon Staley, his Chargers stint was pretty bad in general, but I thought the Saints defense was way better than what their on-field talent was. So I think that all those guys deserve interviews to some range here. I feel best about Kevin Stefanski to the New York Giants, and then we'll see which direction the rest of those teams go with. So that'll do it. I think that will be all the coaches that get fired. We'll get to free agents in a bit here. Rest of the week, we have NFL playoffs preview by me. We have Sam Sherman going over what worked in best ball and in fantasy football this year. We're going to do like a pretty like nerdy deep dive for fantasy football stuff. And then also Pete Overzet drafting NFL playoffs, best ball team strategies. We did a couple mock drafts, explained how to do that. So probably 4 or 5 episodes this week. We'll then obviously recap the games, preview the next slate of games, do some like more like top 12 fantasy football overall picks content, lots of stuff going. Off season's pretty kick ass. We're here. Top 10 free agents coming over on UnderdogNetwork.com on top of that. So to support me, support us, Underdog Fantasy, promo code the show. We have Pick'em, we have drafts, we have prediction markets, lots of offers out there. And then obviously subscribe to the show. Give me your awards down below, all the fun stuff. Buy some like Omaha steaks, man. Like do all that type of stuff. Helps out the channel a ton. So Hayden Winks, these were my awards. I'll see you guys tomorrow.